Okay, and we are live. Awesome. How's it going, everyone? How's it going? I have my guest Diana YK Chan here. I know those of you tuning in are probably still kind of logging in here, so I'm going to give it a few seconds. But let us know in the comments. Let us know that you're here. I'm going to open the live stream my on my side as well to make sure everyone is seeing us and hearing us okay. So let us know in the comments, folks, that you can
Hi,
see us
everyone.
and hear us.
All right, super excited here. Hi, everyone. Welcome.
Yeah, welcome everyone. Let us know in the comments, guys. I don't see any comments or likes yet, so hit like if you are on the stream, and let us know in the comments. You can see us and hear us, okay? We're gonna get this thing started in the next few minutes. It usually does take a few minutes for people to start popping in, so we might have to hang tight there.
No problem. Yeah. Tell us your burning question that you have
All
for
right, here
recruiters.
we go.
Hey,
Here we go.
oh, we see
There we go.
Blair. Hey, Blair. I recognize Blair.
Awesome. Christine is in. Hey, Christine, thanks for tuning in. Blair is in. Folks, put in the comments. Let us know who you are, where you're from, which city you're in,
Yeah.
what your background is, and all of that. We love to hear more about where you're coming from. Graham
Oh, hey,
Moore, thanks
Graham.
for tuning in. All right.
Angela Diovi. Okay, I recognize some of these folks
Yeah.
here. Awesome.
Looks like your fans are coming through, Diana.
You guys are good. Thanks for supporting me here. Awesome.
Awesome.
All
Ahmed, thanks so
good.
much.
Okay.
Thanks so much for tuning in. All right, sounds good, guys. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this thing started as you guys start logging in. But definitely put in the comments, and for those of you who are my viewers, please do give a warm welcome to my guest today, Diana YK Chan. She's someone that I follow myself on LinkedIn as well, and so make sure you put in the comments, say hey Diana, what may make Diana feel welcome. And for those of you who are joining in from Diana's Connections, thanks so much for tuning in. Appreciate you tuning into my channel. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Dean Kulaweera. I'm an IT recruiter. I work primarily in the staffing agency side of the industry. And my guest today is, again, Diana YK Chan, also someone with a very diverse background in recruitment. And we're going to be, getting into that shortly. But I'm just going to read over a few more comments here. So I see Deep has joined in. Hey, Deep. Jasji, thanks so much for tuning in. Janat, thanks so much as well. So, folks, also in the comments, this is a great opportunity for all of you to network with each other. So if you're open to networking, definitely put that in the comments as well. But without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get this started. And also just a shout out to everyone tuning in from or watching from Facebook. You as well, put in the comments. Let us know who you are and where you're tuning in from. And again, what I wanted to, first kind of to set the agenda and all of that. Any job search questions, folks, that you have, job search related, recruitment related, interview related, put them in the comments. Diana's going to be getting around to your questions shortly. And for those of you who have not or are not aware of Diana, who have not heard of Diana yet, I'm just going to give you a brief breakdown. So Diana YK Chan. So she has an MBA. She's the founder of Marketability. She's a personal branding and job search expert, career coach, speaker, and trainer. So Diana is a former recruiter turned career coach, speaker, and trainer at Marketability, which is her company. And the website is www.mymarketability.com. Diana, feel free to put that in the comments. She helps ambitious professionals and executives design the next chapter of their life, navigate transformational changes, and land incredible opportunities with a higher income. She's an expert at distinguishing people's unique brand value, mastering their messages, and networking with confidence to gain a competitive edge. She's recognized as one of the top 10 job search experts to follow on LinkedIn. With over 15 years of diverse experience, Diana worked at Schulich in career advising, Google and Ivy in recruiting, and we're definitely going to be speaking about Google shortly, Accenture in management consulting, and TELUS in marketing operations and training. And having reviewed over 20,000 resumes and conducted thousands of interviews, Diana knows what it takes to make meaningful connections, open new doors to exciting opportunities, and brand yourself as a highly sought after professional and leader. Diana's mission is to empower you to own your greatness with confidence so that you do amazing things and make a remarkable impact in this world. I love that. And you can connect with Diana right here on LinkedIn. If you're tuning in from LinkedIn, if you're on Facebook, make sure you connect with her on Facebook as well. Diana, please do feel free to put your LinkedIn profile link in the comments as well. And without further ado, Diana, welcome to the show and thank you so much for your time. I'm so excited to have you here.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me, Dean. I'm so excited and delighted to be here. I didn't type anything in the comments. It's because I don't want to screw up my stream here. So if any of my
Okay.
followers know me, feel free to put my website and LinkedIn in there. So I just don't want to screw up anything right now. Anyhow, I'm so excited to get started.
Awesome. Sounds good. So Diana, I mean, I guess before we get into, and by the way, just to give a heads up to everyone, folks, what we're going to be speaking about today and what I'm going to be asking Diana today is how to stand out to recruiters, right? Very important question. A lot of job seekers ask me this. Job search mistakes. What are some common job search mistakes that a lot of candidates make in their job search? Adapting to COVID-19. How does one as a job seeker adapt to the current market environment? And a common question I get asked is, hey, Dean, should I even bother conducting a job search right now? Diana's going to be sharing her thoughts regarding that. Diana's also be speaking about building confidence. How do you build confidence as a job seeker? And also, Diana puts a lot of content out about networking. So I definitely wanted to ask Diana about her networking tips and strategies. We're going to be speaking about that. And of course, after that, folks, we're going to be opening up the floor to a live Q&A. But without further ado, Diana, so I think, I guess to get this started, I mean, can you tell everyone, how did you get into recruiting and what type of roles were you recruiting in?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, I've always been passionate about empowering people to reach their full potential. And I've always had a keen eye for identifying high potential talent. So I started recruiting back in like 2000. This is when I was in university, where I started recruiting for retail jobs, like the building blocks. I don't know if any of you know that. That's when I started recruiting for retail roles. And then in university, I recruited for tons of roles, like for volunteer student positions. And throughout the last 10 plus years, how I got into recruiting, I actually did not choose the recruiting career. How I got into it, my first full-time recruiting job was actually recruiting for one of the business schools at the Ivy Business School, where I was responsible for recruiting MBAs, executive MBA candidates. So I had the opportunity to meet with people, variety of professionals in various different industries. And my job was to really identify like the top talent, to potential talent to go into the MBA program. And then from there, that's how I led into a referral opportunity to working at Google as their first and only recruiter in Google Toronto here to help them double their office size. So I was responsible for recruiting digital sales roles, from account coordinator, account manager, account executives, head of sales type of roles there. So within 1 year, like I helped them double their office size. And then through that, I moved into an agency recruiting role where I had the opportunity to recruit for industries in pharmaceutical that I knew nothing about, financial services, retail, CPG. So one of the things that I learned is that I was always given roles that I don't really have expertise in, but I was really good at identifying high potential talent. So that's kind of how I got started in the recruiting world, and I love it. It's a great way for me to really understand people, and it ties back to what I do right now as a career coach, which is helping people to differentiate as top talent to get hired into top companies.
Amazing. And that's something that really caught my attention about you, Diana, because when and I think we've been connected for at least, I don't know, feels like a year or something like that. But when I saw your content, I was like, okay, this person definitely must come from a recruitment background, because your advice made so much sense and really resonated with my experience as a recruiter. So, I mean, getting kind of into the meat of it, however, Diana, in terms of, common mistakes made by job seekers, like what would you say are the top 3 most common mistakes you see, as a recruiter, but also currently as a career advisor, that job seekers make frequently in their job search?
Yeah. So one of the things I know as I talk to a lot of job seekers, the common thing people do is really like over 90% is applying through online application. And one of the common mistake I think I would say is one is the lack of clarity in terms of what you're targeting, and lack of clarity in terms of what you have to offer. And when we have lack of clarity, it's really hard to position yourself in a way that really makes you stand out. So that's really what I call that first step, is really getting that clarity first. Because when you have that, the way you present yourself makes yourself a lot more stronger and more marketable. The second piece is really the lack of strategy. So, I mentioned how a lot of times people just apply through online. It's just really based on whatever they see, they apply. But having a game plan, a strategy is a lot more effective, because this will help you talk to the right kind of people, find the right kind of opportunities, and market yourself more effectively as well. And the third piece is really, I would say, it's the lack of that networking or meeting the right kind of people. Studies have shown, you probably have heard, over 70% of opportunities are found through networking or referrals. And most of the times when I talk to people, networking is the piece where most people are most afraid of or found it awkward in terms of asking for help. So I think there's a big opportunity there in terms of really coming up with an effective game plan to increase the odds of standing out there.
Amazing, and I totally see what you're saying about the networking aspect, because I do find a lot of job seekers kind of lack that ability and that know-how on how to network. And we're definitely folks, we're definitely going to be speaking more in detail about networking later on. And from what you said so far, Diana, it comes down to a lack of strategy and a lack of knowing what the candidate themselves want for themselves and in their career. So I totally get where you're coming from with that. And now you've worked, Diana, both as an in-house recruiter in terms of corporate recruitment, as well as in staffing agency environments. Now, what is your advice to job seekers on how to best approach recruiters and build relationships with them? Because that's something I always write about in my posts. Being a recruiter, I'm always like, build relationships with recruiters. But I think a lot of people don't have that know-how. So what's your advice? What's the best way to build relationships with recruiters? And I guess kind of a second part of that question is there a different way of establishing those relationships with staffing agency recruiters versus corporate recruiters?
Yeah, that's a great question. So let me maybe take a step back on just pointing out the difference between corporate recruitment versus agency recruitment, given I've worked on both sides, just to paint that picture there. So when I was a corporate recruiter, like working at Google, oftentimes, pretty much I was responsible for the entire Toronto office recruiting, like all the sales openings. So it's what I consider like high volume recruiting, where I'll have like 20, 30 plus roles at any given time they'll be searching for. So it's really considered high volume, which means oftentimes I'm talking to like hundreds of people, screening hundreds or thousands of profiles as well. So it's really high volume. Whereas agency recruitment, it's usually more a handful of roles, right? Probably like half a dozen or a dozen type of roles that you're recruiting for. It's just sometimes just really like a few roles there. So the volume is really different, I would say. Now, one thing we got to keep in mind is that in corporate recruiting, as a full-time recruiter, oftentimes they're paid on a full-time salary. Whereas an agency recruiter, you're paid only if you recruit on a contingency role, where you only get paid if you successfully fill the job. So when you think about this as an agency recruiter, there's more pressure as well, right? In terms of timeline, filling the role. Like if you don't fill a role, you don't earn the income, essentially, right? So one of the things I want to first point out is that it is important to network and build relationships with recruiter. However, it's not the recruiter's job to find you a job. Right? It's your job as a candidate to present yourself as the best candidate, and that the recruiter will present you and be the champion in promoting you to employers. Okay. So that's something really, really important. So one of the common mistakes that I see in job candidates that I've seen, especially when I was recruiting at Google, I would get tons of messages on LinkedIn, tons of people who would want to meet with me, have coffee chats. And it's so important, in order to stand out, is to really be more thoughtful in the outreach message in terms of showcasing the research you've done or the people that you've talked to. Just be a little more thoughtful in showcasing the prep and how you can differentiate. Okay. Now, the question around building relationship is there a difference? I think that this is where it comes to really understanding what the recruiter is responsible for, what they recruit for. So for example, like when I was in Google recruitment, primarily all I recruited was for digital sales. So if you are a non-sales person, I really couldn't help you. Right? Because all I recruited for was sales roles. So I couldn't really, maybe I could put you in touch with someone else, but I really don't have insights of those roles there. Same goes as an agency recruiter. If I'm recruiting for sales, marketing, product roles, and you have a different background, there's really not much I can do. So the first step is really understand, does your recruiter recruit in your area? And if they do, then you want to get insights on, what type of roles do they recruit for? Is it junior level roles, mid-level roles, or executive level roles? So I'll use an example when I was at Google. And when I first started, I recruited for a lot more senior level roles, like account executives, senior account executives. So, for me, my focus, my priority is looking for that talent pool there. Okay. So those who come from, let's say, account coordinator, account manager background, that was not my priority, but I knew those roles would be coming down the road. So I would build those relationships. So those who proactively reached out to me, and when I told them, like, I don't have anything right now, but contact me in 6 months. Those who actually proactively follow up on a monthly basis were those who were top of mind and stood out. And literally, like it was like, I remember end of year, all of a sudden there were 20 roles open at the account manager level. So I remember in the new year, that's the people who stayed in touch with me, who were really persistent in following up every single month for at least 6 months with me, were those who were put front of line for the interview first. Okay, so this is the long-term strategy that you want to do if you want to get, let's say, into like a top company, say Google or Amazon. Like those are the relationships you want to build with a recruiter long-term without being desperate. So there's a difference between saying like, hey, do you have something for me, versus like, hey, I just want to check in and let you know I'm still interested in your company. If there is an opening, let me know. So there's a difference in terms of positioning as well. Okay.
Fantastic, amazing, and you brought up. I mean, you brought to attention such an important point, Diana. That's I think the source of frustration for a lot of candidates is, I'm reaching out to recruiters. Why aren't they reaching out back to me? Recruiters are terrible. They're awful. But it comes down to the recruiter's responsibility is to find talent. Like it's not necessarily to find a job for the candidate, and that's the case. And again, I've primarily been working in the staffing agency side, but whereby we're looking for talent for our clients. But I would say that like as a corporate recruiter, your clients would be the internal hiring managers that you're going out there and looking for talent for, I guess. So it's kind of the same principle under which you operate,
For sure.
I guess. So
Yeah.
excellent advice. Now, in terms of so you mentioned working at Google before, or just now, Diana, but and I guess you've kind of touched on it. But what stood out to you as a recruiter about candidates who were able to really separate themselves? Because look, Google, I mean, hundreds, maybe thousands of, you probably reviewed hundreds, thousands of resumes and applications coming in. Like how did those candidates that you actually felt like giving a call to, what made them stand out and against all those other hundreds and thousands of other applicants? And what tips can you share for the viewers on how they approach similar organizations, not just Google, but other large volume organizations, and how do they separate themselves from other candidates?
Yeah. So just some insights, as a corporate recruiter, when you apply to the ATS online applicant tracking system, like we can see, or the recruiters can see all the jobs you've applied to. So it was pretty common that I would see candidates had applied for like dozens or even hundreds of role at that same company there. So that's not an effective strategy. I just want to point that out. Now, in terms of what really stood out, I'm going to talk about some of the principles that I've really learned in terms of really how do you really stand out as like that. We call it the top 2% or top 5% talent there. A few things. One is really what we call the performance. So really to be able to demonstrate that you are a high performer. And so this is really in terms of how you convey yourself in your resume, your LinkedIn profile, how you present yourself when you speak to a recruiter. It's really talking about your performance, which ties into the accomplishments and results and whether you're recognized as a high performer. Okay. Oftentimes a common mistake, and I'm sure you see this too, Dean, is a lot of resumes are more responsibilities based. So it doesn't really stand out. Okay. So that's the number one thing, is the performance piece. The second piece I would say is to showcase progression in terms of progression in your career. So what I talk a lot about is in terms of the scope of responsibilities. So how have you grown in your career as a leader, as an individual? Have you taken on more complex tasks, more bigger scope of work? How have you progressed? Especially if you've been in the same company and same role for, let's say, 5+ years or 10+ years, you need to showcase that variety in terms of growth and breadth as well. So that's the next piece. The third piece is really looking for promotion, right? Like, have you had a fast track in your career promoting from, let's say, individual contributor to a manager level role? Those are things that you really want to highlight, the promotions piece. So something I learned when I was at Google, like one thing I really learned is you want to avoid the fluff, right? Give the facts. So be able to give those facts that if you had a fast track career recognized as a top performer, those are things that you really want to highlight there. The last piece is really what I call the personal brand. So this is the overall package in terms of really standing out as a top talent, which includes your image, your presence, the way you present yourself on LinkedIn, the way you show up when you go into meetings. It ties into also that whole culture fit for a company as well. So when I think about those who, like, I've hired or recruited to Google, there's also that the preparedness or the polishedness as well, and the way they present themselves. So this is where I really want to challenge all of you. It doesn't matter whether you're looking to get into a top company or even, a regular like tier 2 or tier 3 companies. At the end of the day, I want to challenge you to think about, that really having that standard of excellence. How can I really showcase my best self? Right. So instead of thinking, what did I do? You want to ask yourself, what did I do differently? What did I accomplish? What did I contribute? What impact did I make? Those are the questions we want to ask yourself. Take that level further in terms of thinking the so what piece there. So one of the things I always talk about is connecting the dots, right? So the question, that question about why should we hire you, right? Like, why are you the best candidate to get an offer? Oftentimes, it's easy for us to, like, as a candidate, say, I have X years experience, I am really good at this. But to take a step further, right, to really stand out, is you want to connect the dots. Connecting how your skills and expertise would be highly valuable to what the employer is looking for. That's how you're going to stand out. Okay. So I'll give you an example if I can be more specific here. Sure. I think I know some people here in sales as a sales roles, right? There's some people here I see are in sales roles. Sales is really broad, right? Just like IT is very, very broad, right? So you need to also have that niche as well. So as an example, like at Google, sales that they were favorable for was like digital sales, right? And within that, what did they sell? It was like a lot of like advertising, like displayed advertising, paid advertising. Those are things that they sell. So there was a preference if you have experience in technology sales or digital sales, advertising sales, right? So that's like one in terms of experience there. Now, another preference would be depending on the portfolio in terms of what we call the vertical. Right. So oftentimes within that, you could be responsible for sales for, let's say, the technology market, government market, entertainment media, CPG. Right. So if you have what I call contacts or people in that field of industry, that will give you like an extra point as well, because you know the market as well.
Yeah.
Right. And then another one would be, let's just say, depending on the scope, is that like, do you have you sold to people, let's say, depending on the level? Is it you sold to manager level, director level, VP level, or C level? And so if you can tell them, like, what type of clients you sold to and the complexity of the sale of the product, it also impacts in terms of your marketability as well. Right.
Amazing.
So those are the details that I always challenge people to figure out. Like, that's like the above and beyond type of work. Just looking at the job posting is not enough. But if you actually analyze it, that's how you're going to really stand out. Is it okay if I give one example just to point out another to help people?
Sure,
really
absolutely.
understand?
Yeah. Give us all the juicy stuff.
Yeah. So I recruited, this was at least 5 years ago, but I recruited for like a director of an e-commerce role. It was a brand new role for a big company, brand new, right? So e-commerce was relatively new still in terms of finding people with like a lot of e-commerce experience, it's not a ton. Right. So obviously they listed people with e-com experience, sales or marketing experience there. But one of that was not listed in the JD, the job description, was they wanted someone who really could build a team and could also would have a Rolodex. They call it the Rolodex, a network of people that they could tap into, because part of it is also doing like partnership work as well. So that's not in the job posting. And so as a candidate or as a recruiter, as I'm approaching candidates, one of the things I want to understand is not only their experience and expertise, I also want to understand in terms of their network. Like, are they someone well connected as well? Right. So that actually plays a value, because as they're thinking of growing, it's a brand new role. They're also thinking how this person could bring in new talent as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so those are the little things that, as a candidate, those are what I call insights you want to gather from a recruiter that could really make a big difference in your candidacy there.
Absolutely, and this is why these conversations with the point of contact or the recruiter is so important. And folks, I can attest to it. Being a recruiter myself, there have been so many cases where I've had conversations with clients whereby the core actual juice of what they want, like, it's not reflected in the job description, right? Just like Diana said. I mean, I see it all the time as a recruiter. So have those conversations from what Diana is saying. So absolutely, completely agree with you, Diana.
It could be generic, right? Their job posting could be a generic job posting that they have, and there's like these little nitty gritties that you can't tell unless you actually talk to the recruiter.
Yeah, exactly. Totally. You hit the nail right on the head. So now, Dinah, given the current situation with obviously COVID-19, we're obviously, from a recruitment standpoint, what we see is an increased level of competition for job seekers because there's a whole bunch of available talent on the market and much fewer opportunities out there. So a whole bunch of people are competing over maybe a smaller pool of available opportunities. So I guess my question is, and I get this asked to me, but from job seekers all the time. Dean, should I even bother doing a search right now? Like, is right now the time for me to kind of kick back, relax, maybe do some training and certifications, take it easy, let things pass through, and then do my search? Should I wait for the storm to pass, or what are your thoughts on that, Diana? Like, what should job seekers be
Yeah.
doing right now?
Yeah, it's a great question. I've been getting a lot of that, the same question as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, every person's situation is different. So it really depends on your own financial situation as well. But here's the thing, like what I do know is even prior to COVID, the job market has been competitive. Like even since the last recession, the job market itself has already been competitive, especially for, these top companies, highly competitive roles there. So right now, because of what's happening, obviously it's even more competitive there. Right. So the question is like, should I put a pause or not? So it really depends on your situation. Now, one thing though, what I do think it's important right now to double down on is you got to really double down on your personal brand, upskilling, really doubling down on networking as well. Right.
Yeah.
I've seen so many stories right now of people getting offers like after getting laid off from their company, like a few weeks later, 5 weeks later, they got an offer because they made a post on LinkedIn or because their network made a referral. So to me, like if you want to land something soon, you have to be active. Like you got to be top of mind, right? So I talk about to stand out to get opportunities, you need to increase your marketability, visibility, and credibility to stand out. Okay. Now, if you want to take a break to enjoy the summer, like, and I've seen this even prior to COVID, I've had clients who like got laid off and decide to take the summer break, like summer off, and then get back into the game in September, in the fall time. That is fine as well. But keep in mind, like the market is changing, rapidly right now. There's definitely going to be even more layoffs that are happening. Like I've talked to some other executive recruiters as well that, some of the big companies right now are just doing their first round of layoffs right now. There's going to be multiple rounds coming in the fall. So there's just going to be more and more people looking for opportunities as well. So at the end of the day, it's like, do you just want to wait and you still need to put in the effort? One thing I do think, usually it takes about if you're a mid-level candidate, it takes you at least 3 to 4 months to land a job, right? If you're at that director and above level, VP level, it could take a year, right? I have an executive level client right now at the SVP level, really experienced, and it's taken over like almost close to 2 years, a year and a half, to find the right position, just because there's less of those, right? Especially at the executive level, there's even less. And so the approach to do that is definitely through networking, right? One of my client at that level, it's to take maybe like start nurturing a relationship at a company first. And then you keep meeting more and more people throughout the year. And then finally, something's happening that they decide to, this person's top of mind, that they're going to interview this person for the position there. And it's not even posted yet.
Okay, totally understand that. So from what you're saying, Diana, I mean, it does depend on the person's individual situation. But that being said, make the most of whatever time you have right now. I guess that's what you're saying, and put that investment into developing your personal brand and establishing your network. I guess.
Yeah.
Because nothing's going to be handed to you.
No. And now the thing is, I would say I'm a big believer on clarity first before job search. So for those who are looking to make a pivot, like if you are in an industry that's really not hiring right now, you want to change industries or you want to change professions completely, what's really important before even applying for a job, you really have to do that foundation work, which is really that clarity of really understanding who you are, what you want, what you have to offer, and the research of really understanding the new lingo of like this industry and profession and what you're targeting. Then you update your marketing documents. Okay. So there's extra legwork that needs to be done. So I always tell clients, like, if you don't plan on actively looking till the fall, right now, you can still do a lot of preparation, a lot of the prep work there. Okay. Most of the time, we're going to spend most of the time is really updating all your marketing and messaging. That's going to take a big part of the time, even though you think you have it all, but I guarantee you there's like an extra next level that you can improve and optimize to make it even better there.
Okay, awesome. So lay down the groundwork, right?
Yeah, you got to do the prep work. Yeah, here's the thing.
Okay.
I'm going to share, like, and this is what some of you probably heard of me saying this from my webinars as well. Like, I challenge anyone for part of the networking piece is like put together a list of at least 100 people to network with. And I know that sounds a lot of people, but the reality is out of that 100 people, you're probably only going to get like, a dozen or 2 dozen people who would say yes to meeting with you and helping you. Right. So this is kind of like sales, right? Like building that funnel together. Absolutely. And doing the outreach. And most people don't do enough of that and give up after just reaching out to like 10 people.
Love that. I love that 100. I think that's very reasonable. I mean, and again, I guess you and I coming from, sales types of, positions, we kind of see that, right? That pipeline, building a pipeline. And that's what everyone needs to be doing. I totally agree with that, Dinah. Now, Dinah, in terms... Sure.
I was just going to share, like, because you're in recruiting as well. So the reason I use 100, so my rule of thumb for me to hire or recruit someone or can hire from my experience, I know I need to reach out to about or have looked at least 1,000 profiles on LinkedIn and find my best 50 to 100 people to reach out to get to like my top 5 to 10 to present to an employer. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the benchmark I use as from a recruiter, knowing that in order for me to find a great hire, and that's how I apply it to, telling my clients and students is to have that list, is you have that funnel there, because there's going to be opportunity that you're going to get a lot of rejections before you get your first yes there, right?
Absolutely, 100%. Totally agree with that. Now, Dinah, another aspect that I definitely want to speak about is, how important is it for job seekers to build and convey confidence at interviews, in their conversations with recruiters? And what tips do you have for viewers who struggle with building that confidence and may experience some anxiety at their interviews or even just their conversations with recruiters, hiring managers, or whoever it is that they're speaking with?
Yeah, for sure. So first of all, I know that confidence is a really, really important piece in terms of landing the job offer. And I know that confidence can be impacted because, let's say, you've lost your job or you've been looking for a while, that your confidence would have been impacted or you lost your motivation. So it is so key that you find that spark or confidence back again, whether, it's talking to someone, getting the support that you need. So that's so key. Because I'll tell you this, one of the things I always talk about of how, the common reasons why people get rejected through an interview is like, number one is actually lack of confidence. Number two is a lack of connection. Number three is lack of compelling examples. And number four is lack of clear communication. Okay. So the confidence is huge there. So one of the things in terms of building that confidence, first, I think we need to go back to that self-value and how you see yourself. You got to check in with your mindset of, do you see yourself as a marketable candidate? Do you see yourself as a winning candidate? Or do you see yourself as just average, right? I had many years ago a client who came to me for help. He was getting tons of interviews, but not closing. And we only had two sessions and he got an offer. And when I digged further and I asked him, what's your intention or mindset going into the interview? And he said to me, I'm just going to go in an interview for them to find out what's wrong with me. So when you go in the mindset of thinking of people finding out what's wrong with you, you're not projecting your confidence at your ability to do the job well, right? Mm-hmm. As soon as we change that narrative or that story, he got the offer. Okay. So the first things first is I want all of you, if you're feeling like that low of confidence, is, we ought to go back to really looking at valuing yourself first in terms of, what are you great at? What are you amazing at? What are your proud accomplishments? Ask your friends and family, give me that, that's positive affirmations. Like this happened to one of my client last week. I talked to her and she's put together what I call her board of advisors or her friends to give her that positive affirmation before her interview. And it really helped her as well. Right. Another exercise could be writing out your affirmations or doing visualization exercises. That's another way of doing it. But I think one of the important pieces has got to do with how you are telling your own story, how you see yourself. If you don't see yourself as valuable, or if you see yourself as, I just did a job, or that was just part of my core responsibilities, it's really hard to convey that you that confidence to an employer that you have what it takes to really not only do the job, but do it exceptionally well.
Amazing. And I love that example. I mean, that's just the fact that your client was going in with that mindset, and just that mindset shift must have made such a huge difference, right? And it got them the offer. And
totally. This impacts salary too.
Oh wow. Okay, perfect. Yeah, yeah. Amazing.
Like salary.
Amazing, amazing. And you know what? I observe this all the time as well myself, Diana, as a recruiter. Like people approach me and kind of in an apologetic tone, like they're almost apologizing for reaching out to me, which should not be the case. I mean, most of you are highly talented people with a lot of value that you bring to the table. You're solving maybe multi-million-dollar problems at organizations. Like, why should you apologize for reaching out to myself or anyone else for that matter? Now,
Yeah.
folks, I do see questions in the comments. I'm not ignoring everyone in the comments, so continue to put your questions. But Dinah, I believe Emily wanted to ask, what was the third lack of? She missed it.
Third, lack of, oh, so I had lack of confidence, lack of connection, lack of compelling examples, and lack of clear communication. Okay. So one of the things about compelling examples is around like giving what I call the proof, the evidence of support, right? Because there's a saying is that your future performance is also based on, or potential is also based on your past performance as well. So be able to provide relevant examples to an employer is really helpful. Okay. The one thing that ties into the clear communication is I think one of the common mistakes that I see is a lot of times people tend to ramble. When they're nervous, they kind of ramble on an answer, go on and on and on and on, and they're not really answering the question. So a tip here is you want to make sure you're answering the question versus going off a tangent there. And then having a balance between using I versus we, right? Because you're going to interview selling yourself. You're not selling your entire team. So you really want to be clear on what did you do, not what did your team do.
Okay, got it. Yeah, and yeah, Emily says thanks. So that answered Emily's question. So now that being said, regarding networking, Dinah, like I mean, how does networking really work? And can you share a few tips on how people should approach other people? And I get this complaint on LinkedIn all the time. I reached out to this many people, nobody responded. So and what I feel is maybe people are taking the wrong approach. Like, any advice on that end, Dinah, in terms of how to network, just in general, but also specifically on LinkedIn as well?
Yeah. So, I mean, we could talk this forever, I know, networking, but some
Yeah.
specific, I think, so first of all, I think is we ought to look at first of all, the mindset of how you approach networking, right? Are you going into the mindset of networking like I just needed someone to get me a job? Or am I going to the mindset of I really want to build relationships and learn and discover, right? So the mindset piece is important. So getting clear on that and getting clear in terms of your intention and objective is key. The second piece is the way you outreach to people. It needs to be clear on your reason for reaching out, right? Of what's the purpose. There's a difference between saying, I want your help to get me into this company versus like, hey, like I noticed you made this transition and I really admired you about that. Could you share me some insights of how you did that? So focusing on seeking advice and insights first is better than asking for someone to help to refer you or review your resume or LinkedIn profile, because that's a much bigger ask. It's easier for someone to share their own experience, share their own knowledge than them giving you specific advice. Okay, so that's what first piece there, I would say. The other piece is networking with the right people as well. So oftentimes, you probably I hear tell people like go network with recruiters, go network with hiring managers, but you really have to do the research in identifying the right people, right, in order to get results. So I'll give you an example. Many years ago, I had a client at the CFO level, the C-suite, who was from Europe. And she did tons of networking. Like she was going out to network every single week, multiple times a week. But she was not getting any referrals. And so I was asking her, like, who are you meeting? Like, what type of events are you going to? And it turns out she was not meeting with the right kind of people. So I told her, because you're at the C-level, you need to go talk to executive recruiters. You need to go talk to other C-level professionals, right? Because then that's when they're going to understand in terms of your capabilities of what you're able to do. As soon as she changed that strategy of finding the right people to network with, she, was able to really get, like more opportunities and land an offer there. So part of it is you got to ask yourself the criteria, like, who is it that I really want to meet, right? Are they the right kind of people I should be meeting to help me lead to other opportunities or people to meet with further as well? Okay, so having that criteria list is really important. Most of the time, just from my experience, when I ask clients or candidates, I ask them like, so what's the criteria? Often they're like, I don't know, like if they're in recruiting, they're a manager, I want to meet with them. But if you dig a little bit further, you can say, well, if they've actually made a transition into a different industry, or they graduated the same school for me, or whatever those common things that you would value, that you want to learn how they made that transition, could be a great connection point, because there's common interest or common experience that you could relate to and share with, and finding out from that person there.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So you still got to take a strategic approach. It can't be random, right? From what you're saying.
Yes, it has to be strategic. Yeah. And I'll give one of the examples I love sharing when you talk about LinkedIn networking here. Many years ago, one of my really good friends, she got into Google here in Toronto, and she was moving to California. Right. And her husband, who's a robotics engineer, wanted to obviously move down with her, and one of his dream companies was Tesla. And so they used LinkedIn to find someone who works there to connect with. And it was someone like a third level connection that they found. So someone that they knew who knew someone who knew someone. And then, so they had like a video chat, and this person, they connected. This person then referred my friend to the hiring manager. Now, they didn't get a call back. He didn't get a call back right away. It was at least a couple months later, got a call back. And then eventually he went through the series of interviews and, got the offer there. So part of it is also like, you can use LinkedIn to get really targeted, right? If you have certain companies that you want to really work for, get specific, go follow company pages. Within that, you can go look at all the employees. And then within there, like, get specific on the right people to network with to open that conversation there.
Okay, amazing. And I guess kind of moving onwards, I know a few days ago now regarding, salary negotiations, I just want to talk about that real quick. I posted a video and you were like, Dean, we got to talk about this on the live show. So I guess, and my video was basically about, look, when you're in salary negotiations, don't assume that, the salary, like, don't focus just on the salary. Like, you got to find out if that's even the issue. But Can you share any thoughts or advice in relation to salary negotiations, Diana?
Yeah. So salary negotiation is such a touchy topic. Most people are not comfortable talking about it, right? So the first thing first is that you got to get comfortable talking about salary and knowing your own market value. That's really, really important. Second of all is when you are approaching it, when I think about when you're approaching it as you are the finalist candidate, I always say, never start a negotiation until you get the offer, right? Yeah. And never start a negotiation unless you know that you're going to take the job, right? So don't waste people's time. If you know you're going to take it, then this is where you start the negotiation. Okay? So the key here is you want to understand, one, what is the range in terms of the salary, right? The min and the max of salary, and then understand in terms of what's the wiggle room in terms of what are other things you can possibly negotiate. There are so many things you can negotiate besides salary, right? It could be vacation, it could be benefits, it could be stock options, it could be car allowance, it could be signing bonus. So many things that you can negotiate, obviously depending on where you're at. Now, I always talk about, one of the things you want to understand is your negotiation power. So what I mean by that is you need to assess the situation, whether one, are you already considered a top candidate, and are you already considered at the higher band level of your salary? If you are, that obviously gives you more negotiation power, right? If you are at the lower end of the salary, you want to understand what the range is in itself. Right. Now, another thing that would give you higher negotiation power also depends on how long the role has been open for, right? If it's been open a long time, because it takes recruiters time, like money and resources, to recruit as well. And if you are that best candidate, an employer would be willing to give more because they don't want to waste time in terms of recruiting. Another is to find out, is a role like a new role or a replacement role? That also has factor into it as well. But my point here is, in terms of that, is you have to first really know your own market value and know what the rate is. And then also be comfortable in asking as well, right? You don't have to take the first offer. You can also always show your gratitude, appreciation, and then review it as well, and go back and ask, like, this is, based on my research, this is what I'm thinking. Okay. I've seen crazy successful negotiations. Like I'm trying to think of, like, what are some good examples to share here? But I've seen people have like even 6-figure salary increases, or I've seen like friends who have negotiated, car allowance, signing bonus, stock options, extra vacation, all those that equate to a lot more money as well. So the key here is you have to really understand essentially how marketable and valuable in terms of your candidacy is. That will give you that leg room. Another thing that I've seen that people negotiate is that if you are leaving a company and you're about to get a bonus paid out, by your company, and you would lose that by going to this new company. I've had candidates ask the future employer to pay for that payout of that money that they would lose in terms of that as a signing bonus, right? So that's a possibility as well there.
Okay, amazing. I mean, you got to do your market research, folks, right? And there's obviously, as Diana said, so many different aspects that you can use in your negotiations. So appreciate you sharing that, Diana. I'm sure the viewers found that very helpful as well. And we will be getting to the questions shortly, folks. But Diana, so can you tell us more about My Marketability and how you can help job seekers?
Yeah, absolutely. So I founded My Marketability in 2011, and I specialize essentially in career coaching and job search. So in my one-on-one practice, I specialize in helping mid to senior level professionals to, one, find a meaningful career, and then second is to help you navigate the change and then differentiate as top talent. So a big part of the work I do is really holistic career coaching and job searching, from that career clarity to then personal branding to coming up with your job search strategy to optimizing your resume and LinkedIn profile to one-on-one interview coaching. I love interview coaching because of my background in recruiting. I love doing that interview coaching work. So that's what I offer in terms of what I do. In terms of a lot of my service, it is a lot of like one-on-one coaching. You can work with me through a period of time. I usually work with clients from 2 to 6 months, or we can work together for like just 1 or 2 sessions together. And then my latest new thing right now is I do a lot of online events and webinars where I provide, there's free training and also like nominal price events where I offer like speed networking events. So for those who are new to my work, I highly recommend to come on over to my website, opt into my mailing list so that you could get those like upcoming events. Like right now, I have a brand new event that I'm rolling out on June 14th, which is my webinar on differentiate as top talent, how to brand, market, and sell yourself effectively. So it's an hour-and-a-half training that I'll be delivering. And you can just go onto my website to register for that. And I'll also be sending you tips and updates on upcoming events there.
Awesome. Amazing. And yeah, folks, I highly recommend you go, because actually Diana was kind enough to invite me to her one of her recent events. I enjoyed it so much. Like I had so much fun. I learned so much, being a recruiter myself. And I would highly recommend. So make sure you check it out. I believe, Diana, some of your friends have put your information in the comments.
Yes, so, thanks, Emily.
Yeah. So, but again, it is it's www.mymarketability.com. So feel free to scroll through the comments, folks. You should see that in the comments. And in terms of the upcoming event, Diana, like what can people expect at the event, and would they sign up for it at your website, or how would that work out for everyone?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, if you go to my website, mymarketability.com, and you click on events, I know if one of you here, feel free to share that. Just click on that to register. And once you register, I'm also going to give you already some free training. One is how to develop a marketable resume. The second is how to optimize a LinkedIn profile. So you're already going to get some instant free training there. And then, yeah, I will love, for a lot of us here, it's like, help share, spread the word. A big part of what I'm doing right now is giving back and really helping job seekers, because I know it's a very tough job market as well. And for those who are interested in getting some one-on-one career coaching or are not sure, book a consultation call with me. If you go on my website, click on book a call. You can also book some time with me to chat further as well there.
Awesome, amazing, and folks, Diana is very active on LinkedIn. So Diana, like, where can people follow you or connect with you, and what type of topics and content can the viewers expect from you if they were to follow you?
Yeah, so I'm most active on LinkedIn. So the best is either send an invite to connect, or follow me on LinkedIn. I usually put out either a weekly, or even right now, it's really almost daily now, like daily content on anything related to job search, resumes, LinkedIn, networking, interviews, personal branding. I also put up video content as well. So that's on my LinkedIn. That's where I'm most active. The other is my YouTube channel. If you go sign up, either look at my name, Diana YK Chan, or My Marketability. I have tons of videos, especially like long form, like webinars and mini training to help you as well. That's where you can get my video content. And the other, I'm just like starting to show more of my behind the scenes, is my Instagram right now, Diana YK Chan.
Awesome. Yeah, I followed you.
You just followed me too. Yeah.
Yeah. I followed you. Yeah.
With new platform as well.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. All right. So Diana, if you have a few more minutes, maybe we can get into some Q&A. So folks, feel free to put any questions you have. But I do see one question here now. This is a frequent question I get asked as well, Diana. So if you look at the screen here, so Faber, sorry if forgive me if I pronounce your name incorrectly, my friend. Faber asks, how some tips to get a remote job overseas when the network is a key resource to get a job. So I believe what he's asking is it possible to get a job when you're remote out of the country? I know this is a question I get asked a lot. Like, what's your suggestion on that, Diana?
I think right now, given the market we're in right now, it's definitely going to be even more common. I actually just had a like a director above like executive level client who was in Canada, landed a job in Boston.
Wow.
And it's the remote opportunity. And it's because they had trouble finding someone there. And it was through like his network who referred him and hired him because of the situation we're in that, working remotely is totally fine. So it is certainly possible. The other thing is like, because of remote jobs now, say you're in Canada and the company's in US, they don't have to worry about visa issues because I don't like that's it. They don't have to worry all about that. So it's much easier to get those remote opportunities there. Now, it is certainly possible. Like, I've had clients like here who moved overseas, like to Europe as well. The key here then is you need to then expand your networking. Is you got to go find, let's say, recruiters, hiring managers in that market.
Yeah.
Right. So this is where you got to start doing external, like even more research to find the right people to network with. That's going to be the key thing. Is stretching out of your comfort zone with that there.
Okay, amazing. Yeah, and Faber, hope that's hope that helps you out, and with your question. And thanks so much for tuning in. The next question is from Blair. So Blair, thanks for tuning in and for your question. So Blair asks, does it seem desperate to call HR or recruiter back more than once? I've been cold called several times recently, set up an interview. Then when I call back, I get the voicemail and no response.
Oh, good question, Larry. Yes, you know what? It definitely it's either a good idea to either call back or email. Like I have heard right now, either because the situation we're in, that like sometimes like recruiters, like if they have maybe like kids at home, that it's harder for them to take calls. So I think beyond just leave calling and responding a message is also email. Like, is there a good time to follow up? I don't think it would sound desperate. Like I think that it depends on also your positioning there. Just say like, I notice that you call me, want to make sure that I can get my candidacy in. Before the deadline, just being respectful with that there. Yeah.
Okay.
Now, sometimes I was just thinking like, sometimes, it's what we don't know. Here's the information sometimes. So sometimes what we don't know is the status of the search, right? Sometimes
Exactly.
it could be on hold. It's so many different reasons of why they don't get back to you. We don't know there. But don't give up, things like that. It's just out of our control there.
Absolutely. And again, like, and I absolutely agree with you, Diana. Like, don't assume like it could be nothing to do with you. It could be the job's on hold, something changed.
Yeah.
So hope that answers your question, Blair. And thanks so much for tuning in. So I have a question from, let's see here. So Sweta, thanks so much for tuning in, Sweta. So Sweta asks, could you clarify what do you mean by recruiters can see roles candidates applies for everywhere through the ATS? An example, please. Is it over LinkedIn or Indeed or company website? I thought there is privacy rules. So I guess she's referring to what you mentioned before, Diana, about
Yeah. So this is just more like I would say like as a corporate recruiter, right? They have their own ATS system. And so if you apply through online, your profile was within that system already. So those internal recruiters could see it. Not like everyone could see it. It's the company that you apply to. If you applied multiple roles, they can see all the jobs that you've applied to in the past there.
Okay, amazing. Yeah, thanks. And thanks for your questions, Sweta. I hope that's helps out. And let me see here if I have any more questions. Got a lot of people saying they're getting a lot of value out of it, so that's great to hear. Glad everyone's getting a lot of information out of it. Yeah, I do have some more questions here. So here we go. So Daniel Wang has a question. And Diana, how should a candidate follow up with you after they apply to a job? Most recruiters don't respond after resume is sent. So I guess you kind of have answered this, Diana, but anything you want to add to that?
Yeah. So this is a good question. So I think what you're getting at is how do I stand out, right? How should you follow up? Most recruiters respond. Here's a reality. Like, I think this is where you got to put yourself in the shoes of a recruiter. As a recruiter, if they are like internal, they could be responsible for like 20, 30 plus roles, and each role will have like 200-300 applications. So if they respond to every single candidate, they probably aren't doing, like, it's not that they don't want to, but they may not be able to do like the core job in terms of really interviewing the candidate they need to. Right. I think you can still at least follow up, let them know that you've applied. If there is, I could say like, hey, like I want to let you, I'm really interested. If there is interest, I would love to chat further, as a way to follow up either through email or through LinkedIn there. Okay. I know it could be frustrating when recruiters don't follow up. But the reality is, I think sometimes it's really the volume, right?
Mhm.
Even when I was at Google, I did try to, whenever, especially rejection, it's more like people who interviewed and rejected. What's really important for me is I really try to have that personal touch by sending a personal email of the rejection there. Right. But it's really hard if you apply to an online application, expect that you get a response. I would say like some companies do that depending on volume. But if it's like high volume, it's really, really hard. And you may just get the automated response there.
Okay, amazing, amazing. And I hope that helps, Daniel, and thanks so much for your question. I guess we have time for maybe one or two more questions, folks, before we wrap this up. And let's see here. So Janina has a good question, I guess. She says, so Janina says, do you have any recommendations on good sources for benchmarking market research on pay and benefits packages? I'm British and recently moved to Canada and therefore don't have any personal experience in this market to benchmark against.
Mm-hmm. I mean, so these are like, I guess, looking in terms of the salary. I think this is really looking at websites like salary.com, glassdoor.com. So those would be good sites to get like insights for salary information. They probably won't have as much information on benefits. You can probably do like, you can get some general idea based on their website and what people say. But usually those sites would give pretty good salary ranges and a benchmark. It actually is helpful, to be honest. Like I've had clients be able to negotiate more salary because of the research that they've done based on what they saw and help them to actually get a better salary offer there.
Awesome, amazing. And one more question, and hope that answered your question, Janine, and thanks so much for tuning in. One more question, final question from Sandeep, who asks, when recruiters right away say they're looking for someone with many years of experience when they make a call, what should I do to have them develop interest in me being a recent graduate?
Recruiters like,
yeah,
well,
so I guess she's
yeah. Yeah, I guess as a new grad. So I'm guessing, I think this is where you got to showcase more potential as well. Like, I think here's the thing, like if they don't have something immediately, but they see if they're willing to get a call, like they're probably seeing some potential in you. Right. So this is where you want to showcase when you don't have an experience, the way you to stand out, it is through your passion and enthusiasm. Right. It's through your energy, the way you build rapport. Like one of the common reasons when I was at Google that a manager would say why they want to reject someone, a part of the reason is that lack what they call fire, which is really that lack of passion and enthusiasm and energy. So this is part of like, you got to showcase how you are really excited about this company, you've done research. And that's one way to stand out. So they may not have something now, they're looking for someone with experience what they're recruiting for, but you can ask them like, do they recruit for like new grad positions there? Now, for those who are new grads here, there are companies that also have what I call campus recruitment cycles as well, right? So there are also certain times of the year that they recruit. So you want to pay attention to those as well and look for those campus recruiters or new grad, like recruiters who recruit for new grads to build those relationships with as well. Okay. My thing, I believe like if you're a new grad, it's probably not as effective to network with agency recruiters because oftentimes agency recruiters are more responsible for more experience level type of roles there. Would you agree with that, Dean?
Absolutely, 100%, 100%. Yeah, we're mostly engaged for like we rarely get entry level or junior entry level positions for sure. So absolutely.
Yeah. Agency recruiters, usually here's the thing, like usually agency recruiters are engaged because either the company doesn't have enough bandwidth or they are having a hard time to find that unique talent and they need to engage agency recruiters to help out. So when it comes to as an agency recruiter, the level expectation of the talent they look for, like it needs to be better than what they're getting through their ATS system internally.
That's right.
This is why recruiters often have to look for relevant experience first. That's the first thing we as a recruiter look for is the relevant experience, and then everything else there.
Awesome, amazing. So Sandeep, hope that answers your question. Thanks so much for tuning in. So we're gonna wrap it up right there, folks. Diana, thank you so much. Like you shared so much great information, folks. Put your feedback in the comments. Make sure you thank Diana for her time. She spent an entire hour with us. And again, thanks so much to Diana. It was a pleasure having you on the show. I definitely hope to have you back at some point in the future again. And really appreciate you dropping through.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's my final words. Like, I know those were here. Obviously, you're probably most likely you're looking for a job. I just really want to give an encouraging message is to really, one of my favorite sayings, own your greatness with confidence to shine, right? What I mean by that is really believing yourself and when you have something great to offer and to really like, don't give up, like believe that you have what it takes and continue to put yourself out there. I always say like, you got to be proactive, you got to be persistent and you got to have a positive attitude, to really go through this to land a successful job there. Okay, so that's like my pep talk, and hope that gives you some inspiration there.
Awesome, amazing, love that, Dinah, and thanks everyone for tuning in. And just keep in mind, every week Thursdays 2:30 p.m. I do this series, so feel free to tune in anytime. Dinah, thank you so much again for your time today. I learned a lot. Looks like a lot of people learned a lot as well. So thank you so much again for your time, and thanks everyone for tuning in. And hope to see you again next time.
All right, take care, everyone.
All right,
Connect with me on LinkedIn as well. Cheers.
yeah, bye.